Welcome to the New Commission's Artist Talk series for the new site-specific artworks, sponsored by the Houston Airport System at George Bush Intercontinental Airport and Houston Hobby Airport, on behalf of the City of Houston's Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs. Hosted by Houston Arts Alliance Director of Civic Art and Design, Grace Zuniga. Please help me welcome Xavier Schipani.
I'm Xavier Schipani. I'm a painter and muralist from Austin, Texas. I'm originally from the DC area. I went to college in Baltimore and then New York after college, and I've been in Austin now for about 10 years.
And can you describe your piece to us?
Yeah, so my piece, when I first saw the space that it was going in, I thought it was really cool that it was sitting between two escalators and above an elevator. So I definitely wanted to work with motion and also perspective and sort of echoing the movement of all three of those pieces. And so what I did was I created a sea of people that are sort of, if you're going up the escalator, you're moving towards them. And if you're going down the escalator, you're moving away from them. And their perspective kind of changes depending on which direction you're going. And so I wanted to kind of play with that movement and also engage people in sort of the fact that they are also going to become a part of a crowd as soon as they exit the elevators or the escalator itself.
And can you describe the material of your piece? And is it similar to your artistic practice?
Sure. So for this project, I worked with a really amazing carpenter, and he built me some wood panels. And so each panel is 6 feet by 10 feet. And then I use acrylic paint for this process, and then a glaze on top that was sort of a flat matte glaze, just to protect the work, but also be mindful of the natural light that could give a glare, and then the above lighting as well. And so this process is slightly different than what I normally do. I typically work on larger canvas works, or I do a lot of wall mural installations in gallery space. But as far as the size goes, it's something I'm very comfortable with and is a big part of my practice for sure.
And can you talk a little bit about the subjects in your work? Were they drawn from people in real life, or where did you get the figures from?
Yeah, so a lot of the figures in the mural are people that I know, they're friends, family members. I specifically painted some of my friends from Houston because I thought it could be a cool sort of way for them to like see themselves in the airport. Two of them are kind of more well-known in the restaurant business. So I thought that'd be fun to kind of sneak them in there. And I had asked permission, but I was like, okay, you have to go to the airport and find yourself. You're in there somewhere. So that's kind of how I approached that. Some of the figures I kind of, when I was putting the composition together and was looking to do something interesting, I kind of more use my imagination in some of those moments, but I would say 80% of the figures are drawn from life.
And can you talk about your color palette? Is this a color palette that you usually work with? This like monochromatic blue palette that you finish the pieces with?
So I do often work with a monochromatic palette. I am half blind, so the way that I see color is very different, and I don't have depth perception. So a lot of the times I'll use a similar color palette to kind of play with shape and like edges and line. And for this particular piece, I use the blue as sort of a calming effect. I know a lot of people can have anxiety when they're traveling, or just there's a lot of frenetic energy happening in an airport. So I was thinking a lot about water and also movement and how blue is kind of associated with that. And yeah, I just kind of stuck in that color palette. I was thinking a lot too, just about like a vertical waterfall, or just the way that water droplets catch light in a different way. And so kind of wanted to play around with that for this project.
And you touched on this briefly earlier about, the public seeing this and then kind of being themselves being integrated into these like groups of people. Can you expand a little more about how you want the public to respond to your artwork other than like being part of a group or like a swarm in a sense? What do you want for them to feel and like step away with after seeing your work?
I think the biggest thing for me is I want people to see the work and also get excited about other work they're going to experience in the airport. I feel like the Houston airport does such a great job on showcasing work and making it a space that if I was recently stuck there for 2 or 3 hours and, I was able to explore and look at the work. Obviously I had a heads up because I've been a part of this project, but I think it offers something that's really enriching and is fun to do if, besides, just sitting at a bar or a restaurant or on your phone. And so I think beyond getting people excited about engagement, I want the takeaway to be, sort of a calming vibe, something that is also exciting. Traveling is really exciting to me. I think that it's something that we take for granted a lot. So I think it's a moment for people to kind of appreciate that bigger adventure that we're all on when we're in an airport. And that's kind of my hope, that they take away some of that.
So you also mentioned earlier that you work, you create murals and galleries. And your piece here, it's created not directly on the wall, it's created on a substrate it's then hung on the wall. And so how did you feel about like integrating a substrate like into that cove? Do you feel like it did what it was supposed to do? And then a follow-up question to that is like, what was the most difficult part of this installation for you?
Yeah, I think the Cove was really cool. It was kind of a unique opportunity to make something that had its own cubby space, which I thought was really fun. And like I said, I worked with a really great carpenter, and he was, had a lot of pointers just about hanging the work. And I worked with a really great installation team. And I think the trickiest part for them was they had to hang the bottom first and then slide the top side down. So what they ended up doing, which I thought was a really cool way to approach this, was they installed temporary handles on the top panel that they could then use to hold the work and slide it down carefully, because it was on a cleat system. So basically there's, the backing of the cleat, and then the piece had to hang flush with that and sort of interlock. So they were able to use those handles to slide the work down, lock it in place, and then straighten everything out, which I thought was a cool approach. I definitely would not have thought of that. And then they were able to just remove the handles, which was pretty great. So in terms of me installing it myself, wasn't something that I could do on my own. But I thought the process went really smoothly, and I thought a lot of the troubleshooting, was really great stuff that, like I said, I would not have thought of.
Didn't each of the panels weigh like 200 pounds?
Yeah,
Something?
they're pretty heavy. I mean, so that's the other part. My carpenter, he made them as light as possible, but again, they're like, each one was about, I think, 175 pounds. So it's not an easy thing to hang.
What were the biggest, besides outside of like the hanging, were there any other technical challenges or challenges that you face as an artist within this process of being commissioned for public art in an airport?
Yeah, so I would say like the toughest part about this particular piece was that I couldn't fit both ends together in my space because it was too long. So I had to work on each panel basically across from each other, and then measure each section of each end to where they were going to meet up to make sure that they were compatible. So that was slightly difficult. And then also I was working on them like in an outdoor space that was like sort of enclosed. So it was just, the weather was up and down. It was a little bit wild. But yeah, other than that, everything went really smoothly. And yeah, it slightly differs from doing like a wall mural or like a piece like in my studio space. But I would say, that was the hardest part. And then also, working with an airport, there's a lot of like regulations and steps and security that has to happen. So that was like a slightly different process for me. But beyond that, I would say everything went pretty smooth.
So is this your first public art installation in this, I guess with this, like in this scope, in an airport? I know you mentioned you had work in galleries and things like that, but is this your, was this your first like public art installation that you've completed?
Working on one with the Austin City Fire Department, which has been really cool. It's an installation at two separate fire stations as a part of their 50-year renovation of every single station in Travis County, Austin proper. So that's been a pretty awesome process. I did an entire summer's worth of ride-alongs with both stations. So it was really involved and like super fun. There is a lot of paperwork and a lot of sort of in the same vein of, proposals that have to happen. And I'm working with a city engineer, a city planner, an electrician. So it is a similar process of having a lot of moving parts and staying organized. But yeah, these two projects are my first two that are sort of similar, where I'm working with the city on a larger scope. Because I've participated in a lot of mural programs in Baltimore and Philly and New York. But those are kind of contracts that happen really quickly and are executed really quickly. So I would say these two projects are for sure my first in this world. And it's definitely a new process, but it's something that you do and you learn pretty quickly as you're going. And I think it's really valuable.
And do you feel like you want to continue down this path of making public art for cities and working within this process?
Yeah, I think every artist should try to do it once. I think that, like I said, it's a really great learning process. You're learning about business, contracts, collaborating with people. I mean, most of my practice in my daily life, I'm not collaborating that much. I'm not having these conversations with people. So yeah, it's something that I would like to continue to pursue for sure.
If you wanted to add anything that maybe we didn't cover that you felt was important to your project.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank my team, honestly, everyone that I worked with on every single side of it. I thought that everyone did a great job, and I learned so much, and I hope that everyone, like I said, every artist out there that's interested should try. I know it's a daunting process, but kind of once you get your foot in there, and even if you don't get the project that you apply for, I would just say to keep trying. And it's really worth it. Not, obviously the money is there and it's a way to grow what you're doing, but also I think in the administrative side, it's a really valuable process. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that was involved for sure.